Okay, welcome back for episode 5 of our planning series for the Crossfire race car project. Today we're going to be talking about the ECU and fuel requirements of running a 600 horsepower V8. So, since we're going with a manual, we don't have to worry about transmission control, so that will save us quite a bit. But we're probably going to be looking at E85 since we have that readily available around here. For that matter, we actually have a ethanol plant about 2 miles away from here, so we should have ethanol capabilities. Most likely, it's like then you're going to have to deal with injector size, and E85 uses quite a bit more fuel per oxygen content, so you need bigger injectors than you would if you ran standard gas. So it's like, to get to our 6 or 700, we'll probably be pushing it running with the standard Deca 80s. So essentially, we're probably just going to go that cheap route, get the 80s, plug them in there, maybe up the pressure a little bit from like 45 psi to maybe like a 50 psi baseline or thereabouts, and pretty much just tune it up, max out the injectors, and that's where we're going to sit. So that should put us at 6 or 700. So it should be an easy formula for it. Like I mentioned before, Sloppy Mechanics has done quite a few of these things, and those Deca 80s seem to be a good runner, great price. It's like, what is it, $300 for the whole set? You try to step up to some of those injector dynamic, like 110 or something, and you're paying out $300 an injector. I mean, it's ridiculous. But we're probably going to go with that, and then they keep everything fed through our road courses and whatever race we're going to throw at it. We're probably going to put in a swirl tank or a surge tank, depending on what you want to call it. It's basically going to be a secondary little, maybe half gallon to a gallon, extra little canister that will feed it off the stock fuel pump. It'll go into this canister, and then from that canister we'll probably feed a dual pump system up to the engine, and then the return line will come back to that little swirl tank. We can show you here back on the computer. This is just like a sample idea of what a certain surge tank will be. Feed in one. This would come off of here back for the return line to the fuel tank. So you'd have the main line to your big fuel pumps. You'd have a feed line from your fuel pump from the tank to the swirl, and then you'd have the return from the engine back in there. So then this will remain full, and you won't have any fuel starvation issues because you have this little canister that will keep it fed until the fuel tank can suck up some more gas. So that's the idea there. We might go through and like make our own, because I mean, depending on, it's like you can get like a decent little tank or something. This is a radiator tank, but let's add I guess this big one's like $500. So we might just be making our own. This is kind of a neat little design. It's all tightly packed. So yeah, we might do something like this little guy. You got your two little pumps up there. You got your fills and your returns. So we might come up with our own little device like this. Probably save so we don't I don't see where 300 some bucks is in there. So we might try out our aluminum casting capabilities with the little mini forge out there, and we might make ourselves a nice little finned aluminum fun little thing. So that can be a project in and of itself. But anyways, that's pretty much what our fuel feeding to that point will be. Now we just have to figure out what type of ECU we want to do. Now, as you can see, a lot of people like using something like the Dominator EFI, but you can see for these LS kits, granted this one does come with injectors, and this one's 160 pound injectors, 120 pound injectors, 83 pound. So for 4,200 bucks, you can get a full ready to fly for probably a good 1,000 horsepower. And it's a quality system. It works, runs. I think like Cletus is using something similar. Like if we jump over to this HP style, you get a lot cheaper pricing. It's like this really isn't a bad price for it. You can do boost control, progressive nitrous, fuel pump control. It's like if you need more than the 4 inputs and outputs, you have to go to the Dominator, which adds your couple grand to it. One of the other things that I was considering is the MSD Atomic LS. This is a really neat system because all of the ECU parts are housed in the fuel rail. So let's go. We can go take a quick image search, and you can see it gives you a nice clean look to it. Switch over here. So your entire ECU is under this section, so you wouldn't need to run any wires to the firewall. You just have to run the power wire and you're done. Really awesome for engine swaps. The price isn't horribly out of whack. A lot of times you can find them for a couple $100 off of that even on certain things, but from looking at it, I'm not sure it's as reliable of a thing for turbocharged situations. And I kind of also want to do other stuff that will require more input type of stuff. So I kind of want to mess around with boost control, traction control, all that type of stuff. And this atomic system is primarily just designed to shove on an engine with a couple upgrades and just swap it into some vehicle and never look back. So it's not necessarily made to handle all the crazy fun stuff, like even flex fuel. Upside though, it does, if you're just looking for a straight up swap, take a modern anything, it can run the VVT cam sequencer. So you can take any of those newer engines and just shove it into an old muscle car, throw that on top, program a couple little things with a handheld thing, and hit the key and you're ready to hit the road. So then, of course, our other option would be the Mega Squirt system. Now this LS Gold box from EFI Source, they're actually a very popular unit. It was also used by Sloppy Mechanics on some of the builds. And being Mega Squirt, it's kind of a open source design thing. It will pretty much allow you to do the boost control, traction control, flex fuel, and through a couple little software things, you can actually use a cheap Android tablet as your gauge. So unlike the Holley product, where you have to go and buy like the Holley Dash for another $300, $400, $500, you can actually use, I think it's called like Shadow Dash or something, for Mega Squirt systems. And that will allow you to use those extra features. So you can do data logging and all that stuff on the fly. You can see real time, all the gauges, all on a nice little tablet that you wedge in the dash somewhere. The other benefit is price is right at a nice price. And this particular one for the $1,500 actually comes with the Deca 80 injectors. So this is essentially a all-in-one package, ready to bolt onto an LS, ready to fly. It's like a lot of times they even pre-program it with a base tune that will allow you to fire the engine. So it'd be enough to fire it up and get it onto a trailer or not, and get it out to a dyno or something if you're into that. There's also a lot of tune files rolling around on the internet. So once again, Sloppy Mechanics actually put his tune that he did for like the 6-liter 1,000 horsepower. There's actually a tune sitting around that he used, so we could actually just skip a lot of that rough tuning and use his tune in our system, and then just make a couple little fuel adjustments here and there, and you should be good to go. So as you can probably tell, this is where I'm probably leaning. It's like I really like the idea of the atomic, just for the cleanliness of installing, but the Mega Squirt is a much more robust system in features, and the Holley, for what we want to do, we'd probably have to go with a Dominator, and we're just not into spending $4,000 on just the ECU. It's like we're trying to keep this budget under $10,000 for this whole thing. Hopefully less than that, but we got to figure in the pipe for the DOM and safety seats and harnesses and tires and wheels, and it'll add up really quick to our 10 Gs, and I don't necessarily want to spend a huge amount of money. It's like there's much better places to put that than trying to kill myself. And so, anyways, that's probably what we're going to do. So we'll get ourselves an LS, put a nice little Mega Squirt system on there, and we should be ready to carve some corners and burn some tires. So anyways, that's going to be it for this episode. Stay tuned for the next one. We're going to be talking about how the car is actually going to look on the outside and that type of stuff. And that should probably be our last episode. I think that's enough planning by that time that everyone will be sick seeing my face and just blurting out information, and they want to probably start seeing some build action. But be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll be sure to keep this build updated as we go along. Later.